In Words That Change Mind, Shelle Rose Charvet talks about whether you are a towards person or an away from person. Are you somebody who's trying to avoid the problems behind you, or are you someone who's looking for the solution ahead? Let's find out more. Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of Atomic Ambition, the podcast. It's a great day, and we have another great book for you this week. Words That Change Minds by Shelle Rose Charvet. I hope I got the pronunciation correct. It's Charvet or Charvet. I'm not sure. So, Words That Change Minds. When I first came across this book, the title Words That Change Minds, that was a book that was so intriguing and fascinating for me. And it's a book that's been on my shelf next to books like How to Win Friends and Influence People for a long time. So, what is this book about? Words That Change Minds. It's a book about influence and how you can influence other people. I have to admit, even though I'm really fascinated by this subject of influence and creating better connections and communicating with people, this book is a little heavy. Maybe the later editions of the book have been sort of watered down a little bit, I don't know, but the version of the book that I got, it was a little bit heavy in terms of the psychology. Which is explained in if you're interested, brilliant. But it was a little bit too much for me in terms of I'm not a psychologist and I didn't quite understand everything. Okay, but it's still a great book if you can sort of ignore the technical bits that are beyond my understanding and perhaps beyond some of your understanding. It's still a great book. Words That Change Mind. Shelle Rose Charvet. So the one thing I've taken from this book is, in fact, it was one of the first concepts that Shelle writes about and talks about in this book. And it's about language behavior models. Are you an away from person or are you a towards person? Are you the kind of person who wants to move away from the problem, or are you the kind of person who wants to move towards the solution? What kind of a person are you? Now, if I ask any of you guys this question now, you're all going to tell me you're a positive person and you want to move towards the solution. We all like to think that we are, but the truth is reflected in the language that we use on a daily basis. Okay, so just imagine this scenario. You're a worker. You're perhaps dealing with an issue or a problem, and your boss is giving you pressure. There's tight deadlines. When you're describing the situation, are you the kind of person that talks about the problems that you're facing, the hassle, the need to come up with a quick solution? You want something that's hassle-free so that your boss will get off your back. Yeah. If you're the kind of person that would describe the situation like that, then you're using, well, let's say negative language. So you're somebody who in that situation is looking to move away from the problem. Okay, makes sense? Whereas somebody in exactly the same situation who might use, let's say, more positive language. Oh, we need to find a solution for this. We need to resolve this problem as quickly as possible, and we need to see how that we can advance this into the future. Yeah, that is a much more positive framing and much more positive language. That is the kind of person who is moving towards a solution. Okay, so another way to describe that, the away from person wants a quick, hassle-free solution. So if you have an idea, you would perhaps want to frame it as, look, if you do this, this is hassle-free for you. Your boss will not be giving you any more hassle anymore, and you're just free to relax and get on with your day job. Yeah? On the other side, the person moving towards a solution is possibly more motivated by exploring different ideas on how to solve the problem, and wants to talk about, pros and cons of each, future outcomes of each, and the other advanced benefits from each of those solutions. So, away from or towards? Are you an away from person or are you a towards person? I think if I ask you guys, you're all going to say you are positive towards people. Yeah? So am I. Okay. Now, so let's imagine we have a scale. Let's imagine that we have extreme positivity towards, and we also have extreme negativity away from. These are the extremes. We might come across these kinds of people in our lives, but the truth is, we all fit, let's say 95% of us are going to fit somewhere in the middle. Okay. And in some situations, we are going to use more positive language. In some situations, we're going to use more negative language. Okay. So I don't think there's a one size fits all for everybody in every situation. In some situations, you might find yourself using more away from or negative language to describe the situation, whereas in other parts of your life, you might be more motivated and encouraged to find solutions and be more positive about it. Yeah, I think it really depends. For example, so a work situation which is causing you hassle and stress, and you just want a quick fix. Yeah, you're not really bothered. You don't want, you don't care about the future. You don't want 5 or 6 options. You want one person with a hassle-free solution. Brilliant. Sorted. That's what we're having. Done. Move on to the next thing, because that problem's now behind you. But imagine in another part of your life, let's say outside of work, one of your hobbies. And let's say if one of your hobbies is photography, and you're trying to capture the perfect image, but for whatever reason, there's a problem. It could be something in your setup, something in the lighting. Yeah? Okay. Now, you're motivated in this situation because it's a hobby, it's something you enjoy doing, to find solutions, to explore different solutions. And while exploring those different solutions, you might experiment and try lots of different things because you're motivated. And as you're describing that situation, your language will also be more positive rather than negative. Okay. Does that make sense? I hope it does. How can you guys use this? Well, obviously, when you are communicating with people at work, you should listen. And it's an opportunity to use your active listening skills. Listen to how people describe different situations. Are they using more negative away from language, or are they using more positive towards language? That helps you understand that person's feelings and motivations in that given situation. Yeah. And if you can better understand someone's feelings and emotions, then I suppose you can influence them easier. And that's what Words That Change Minds is about. So what you would probably do is kind of mirror their language. If I'm talking about problems, hassle, then mirror those words. Yeah, I can help solve your problems. This is completely hassle-free for you. Yeah. On the more positive, talk about being excited to find the solution, exploring possibilities. Yeah. So, mirror, listen very carefully. Use your active listening to listen very carefully, and then mirror the same language back to the person. Okay. We spoke about language mirroring in the from a previous episode a few weeks ago, Never Split the Difference. Another great book. Yeah. So there are some similarities here, but obviously with sort of language behavior models, it's more about really, really understanding the motivation of somebody. rather than just mirroring the words. This is about having a deeper understanding about what motivates somebody. Now, if I asked you guys, are you positive towards people or negative away from people? What are you going to say? You're going to tell me that you're positive towards people. Of course you are. So am I. Interestingly enough, though, I did actually do an analysis of some of the language that I use in different situations. I did this a few years ago. One of the things that I noticed, I do like to think of myself as being more positive than negative. But, and this has really helped me, I now know and I now understand that in certain situations, particularly when I'm tired or stressed, my language turns very negative. So if I'm tired, if I'm stressed, if I'm a little bit overworked, I'm feeling a little bit of pressure, in those situations, I look for quick solutions that are hassle-free. And my language definitely reflects that. Yeah. I talk about problems, I talk about, oh, hassle, or no, I don't like this, you know. As my wife, she will tell you this is true, especially when I'm tired. But generally, I like to think that I'm more positive. From doing this self-assessment, I did start to think about the language and the words that I use on a more regular basis. And I've practiced, I've tried to, except when I'm tired and feeling stressed and pressured, I certainly make an effort now not to use negative away from words, unless it's absolutely necessary. Yeah. So I'm trying to make a positive approach to that, to be more of a positive person than a negative person. If you haven't read Words That Change Minds, please go and get a copy of the book and look at the language behavior models section on towards and away from, and do a self-analysis. Find out what kind of personality, what kind of person you are. Bear in mind that I think with different moods, different situations, different scenarios, you're going to be more negative in some areas and more positive in others. Okay. But that's the one big thing that I got from this book, which was really understanding that the language that you're using really is a reflection of how you feel in a situation. Okay. So there you go. Towards or away? What kind of person are you? See you next week.